Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth Newsom and welcome to my BookTube channel. Today, I'm going to talk about 5 secret things that make being single awesome. So this is more of a personal issue than a bookish issue, but it's something I've been thinking about recently. So as I'm sure you guys know by now, I'm a romance writer. I write online stories on Wattpad and I'm going to publish one of my books soon. And one thing that I've seen on my Wattpad story is a lot of people comment and they say, man, I need a guy like this in my life. And while I completely relate to that need and I certainly empathize with it, sometimes I feel like we could take our singleness for granted and we just idolize this state of being in a relationship. And honestly, being in a relationship is pretty phenomenal. There's someone who you're attracted to and they're a super close friend and you feel like you could just talk to them about anything. And you do all these fun things together and you just so enjoy their company. And it just feels so great to be with someone and to have that kind of acceptance. But there are some really great things about being single. Like for example, you don't have to share your food. Sometimes that annoyed me because he'd buy one plate and then we'd both have to split it when I wanted to buy a completely separate dinner. But no, in all seriousness, there are several things that you can do while being single that it's much harder or even impossible to do while you're dating. The first thing is self-discovery. So you might think that the dating process is part of self-discovery, and it is. But there's a certain part of it that you can really only do when you're single. Like for example, when you're single is a really good time to discover what your core values are. And by core values, I mean what character traits are really important to you. What kind of character traits do you want to emulate, and what kind of things do you want to have in a guy or a girl that you're dating? And if you're already dating someone, it's kind of hard to decide like, oh, sincerity is really important to me. And then realize that this person is sarcastic all the time. Tough situation, right? But really, relationships could be a little distracting, which is why it's easiest to find out about these things when you're still single. Another thing is your must/hope list. And this kind of goes along with self-discovery and what I was previously talking about. Essentially, it's 2 lists that talk about what you want in the person you're going to marry. So of course you have a must list and a hope list. Things you must have and things you hope you have in a spouse. So I'm going to be kind of vulnerable and share a few things that I have on my list. So here are some things he must do. He must take an interest in my writing and encourage it. He must be a servant leader. He must respect me as an individual with boundaries and commitments while we're dating. He must exercise regularly and have a rock-hard body. So essentially, I want the guy I date/marry to be more in shape than I am. Like, of course, that means stronger, but it also means working out pretty intensely, and then, of course, eating right. Like, even if he looks good now, if he has, like, jelly beans for breakfast and eats potato chips all the time, in 10 years, he's not going to look like that. So, fitness is really important to me. And then I have my hope list. I hope he knows martial arts. I hope he likes wrestling and verbal sparring, because I do. I hope he wants pets. I hope he has a 6-pack. I hope he's not paler than I am, because honestly that'd be kind of creepy. I hope he's taller than me. I hope he's not a redhead. And I know that sounds kind of terrible and shallow and judgmental, because it totally is. This is my hope list, so I put whatever I want to in it. So my must list is based on my core values and things that are really important to me. My hope list is kind of silly and shallow. And then also the final part of self-discovery is principles. So essentially in dating, what are you going to do and where are your boundaries? One really important principle to me that I only discovered after my breakup was that I want to be treated and respected as an individual while we're dating. A lot of people while they're dating, they kind of make the mistake of being a little too intimate. And what I mean is they feel like that they have to make all their important decisions together, their physical boundaries aren't what they should be. And essentially they start acting a little like they're married even when they're not. And maybe this doesn't seem like such a bad idea to you guys because of course it's really common in romance novels. If you love a guy and he's great, then why not like pour your heart out to him, have a say in all your decisions? Well, here's the thing. If you get that emotionally engaged, then what happens when you break up? And I didn't think about this for my first relationship because I didn't even consider the possibility I could break up. I thought, this is totally going to be forever, it's the one. So it's really important to make certain decisions and boundaries before you get into a relationship to just help you guard yourself and protect yourself for the guy who's really going to be your husband. And of course, once you get into a relationship, these boundaries are so much harder to set, especially if they've already been broken. Alright, finally on to point number 2, which is more focus. So relationships can be highly distracting. I know that when I was in a relationship, I was texting him a lot. Not all the time, like not when I was supposed to be in class or when I was eating dinner or with my friends. But still, I was texting him a lot, and it's really hard to make time for other things that are important to you outside of that relationship. So while you're not in a relationship, this is an opportunity to focus on the people you love and the things you're passionate about. And it's also easier to focus because there's less drama. Like, even though all in all our relationship was pretty mature, at least compared to some other ones I've seen, we still had things where either like there was a miscommunication or I felt like he was disappointed in me. So I was a lot more emotional in a relationship than I was out of it because he had emotional access to me like very other few people had. And that was kind of my mistake for getting too emotionally involved. But anyway, it's easier to be more focused when you're single rather than when you're in a relationship. Number 3 is spending time with your family. This might not seem like such a great point, but it is. Because when we start dating someone, we're kind of infatuated with them. We're thinking about them all the time, like I wonder what they're doing. I wonder if they were with me, what we'd be doing together. I wonder what we're going to be doing, or kind of dwelling on things that happened with them in the past. Like just thinking about them all the time and in every way. But when you're single, it's an opportunity to just love people without that sense of infatuation. And of course, the best people to love are your family. Because in some ways, they can be the hardest people to love because I know my family's flaws better than I know anyone else's. And they know mine better than anyone else knows mine. So one thing that I've tried to take an advantage of now that I'm not in a relationship is just loving my family as best as I can. Because I'm sure all of us want to get married and then we'll stay in love for the rest of our days. But what happens in a lot of marriages is, the divorce rate is 50%, people fall out of love. And I think the problem is that they enter into a marriage when they're in a state of infatuation. And once they're out of that, they're not used to choosing to love people when they don't feel like it. So your family, that's a great way to love people even when you don't feel like it. So I've just tried to speak my family's love languages, like being compassionate towards my little sisters or stopping what I'm doing to listen to something that's important to them, even if it means I have to skip lunch or I'm running late for something. Or I like to have tea with my dad. I write notes for my mom because her love language is words of affirmation. So overall, this is just a time to become a loving person, even when I don't feel like it. Number 4 is cognitive abilities. So before I was in a relationship, I always thought that I wouldn't be one of those girls that got overly emotional, was just blindsided by their emotions, couldn't see the other person's faults. But once I was out of a relationship, I realized just how blind I was. Like, there were certain things I saw in him, and I saw that during our relationship, but for some reason it just didn't click with me. I ignored it. I just passed over it and I didn't think about it. So in a relationship, you don't realize how much you're not thinking, but seriously, your emotions kind of hijack your brain. So when you're in a relationship, it's really important to have people you love that have the same core values that you can rely on to help you judge where the relationship is going and whether this is really the right person for you. Which leads me on to my 5th point, is that you can use this time to prepare for a relationship. So you can set up people who are kind of like mentors and accountability partners. I'd have a friend that I'd call after my dates, and we'd talk about all the things that happen, and she'd remind me that even if he calls me beautiful, to make sure that I think I'm beautiful on my own without relying on him for my self-esteem. And I'd also have some spiritual mentors that I'd go to that I could talk to about this relationship, which really helped when things weren't working out as well. Another thing you can do, like I mentioned earlier, is set up boundaries for things you will and won't do during dating. Another one of my dating boundaries, I call it the take it or leave it policy. So either I take someone and I date them as they are, and I have to be okay with them at the stage of growth they're at. Like, I have to ask myself, if they never improved from this point on, could I actually marry them? Hard question, right? And if there's something like, this is a great person, if I could just change this one thing while we're dating, then I could totally marry him. Then I wouldn't date him, because a dating relationship isn't the way to change people. And I've heard that people get into a lot of trouble when they date someone that they're trying to change or start dating someone that they wouldn't really marry. And then finally, another thing you can do to prepare for a relationship is start asking for advice. I would literally ask advice from everyone. It was kind of embarrassing. I'd ask it from the people who were cutting my hair. I'd ask it from my grandma, all my friends, regardless of whether or not they'd been in a relationship. I asked advice from literally anyone I got into a conversation with about the topic. So there you guys have it. 5 secret things that are now not so secret that make being single awesome. Ultimately, being single is not a time to have like a little pity party and kind of mope around and dream about the guys you could be dating. Although, I'm kind of guilty of doing that. But it's a time to just focus on the things and people that really matter to you. So with that, if you're single right now, I hope you'll take advantage of this opportunity, because that's what it is, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Well, thank you guys for watching this kind of personal video. Again, I know it's not super bookish related, but it's just something I've been thinking about lately. And also, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Let me know if you've been in a relationship, what your experiences are, or if you're single and wanting to be in a relationship. And with that, I'll see you next time. Bye!